Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Spawdcast. This is our first season that we're going to be doing this in a brand new studio, and we're very excited. So a few things we are doing differently. We have guest co-hosts this season, and I'm very excited to bring on guest co-hosts. All of my co-hosts will be pet lovers that are interested in pet health and nutrition. Not necessarily, my guest co-hosts won't be people who are veterinarians. They're just pet lovers, and so they're going to be able to ask some really unique questions that I may not have thought to ask that you might be thinking of. So I'd like to introduce to you today, our guest host for this interview is Elizabeth Newton. Elizabeth has worked with me for about a year, and
Three.
Almost. Oh my gosh, that's time flies when you're working with someone that you love to work with. Oh. She and I work really well together because we're very like-minded, and it was a perfect fit to bring Elizabeth on for our guest that we're going to be interviewing today, because Elizabeth has a great interest in herbalism. So welcome to the show, Elizabeth, and welcome our guests. They're your guests too now.
I'm so excited to talk with you.
So I'm gonna quickly introduce to you who I brought on, but before I introduce this fabulous guest that I know you're all gonna be very, very, very interested in listening to this amazing story, I just want you to know that I looked for him. Like, I knew there was people out there who were stepping up and stepping out and making changes in pets' lives. And I was really looking for somebody who I thought exemplified exactly what I want our listeners to know, is that you don't have to be a veterinarian, you don't have to be in the industry to help your animals on your own. You just need to be able to educate yourself and have a desire and a want to do that. And so I am so proud today to introduce to you who's here actually through Skype, because we're doing some social distancing, which we think is important. And so I'd like to welcome to the show today Steve Sietos. Hi, Steve. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much.
So Steve just gave us a little lesson on the origins of his name, because his name is actually Starvos. And so he gave us a little interesting background on it. And so I had a hard time pronouncing his name at first. So and my brother's name is Steve, so we're going to be calling him Steve through the rest of the show. And this is his dog, Wilma. So I'm going to just ask you a couple questions about Wilma. Can you tell us a little bit about how she came into your life?
She was brought into the firehouse back in 2009, in the summer of 2009, and she was just a puppy, probably 6 months old, and she had just a bunch of swollen paws, and we brought her to the vet, and the veterinarian actually thought we were abusing her, unfortunately, because she was self-mutilating and she didn't have pads. So it was kind of a little bit of a nightmare, but she was such a sweet little thing with her tongue hanging out on the side and her funny little walk, because she does have deformities in her limbs. The captain then decided after some time that he was going to put her down, because guys were taking her home but bringing her right back, because it was just it was pretty much a bloodbath, and 3M could not make a strong enough cone for her to not be able to get to herself.
So she was just chewing at herself constantly?
Yeah, she was obviously probably very, very itchy and uncomfortable from not having pads. And her skin was kind of just falling off, and
oh my gosh.
she was vomiting and pooping blood and having epilepsy, and it was just kind of basically the sweetest nightmare you could imagine. It was both. I fell in love with her, and I decided to take her home, and very quickly went bankrupt on veterinarians.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, they were very, very, very well-meaning.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, just there's not a lot you can do for a constitution. You know, there's antibiotics to kill bacteria, and there's steroids to block a process that's happening in the body, but it just never really addresses why it's happening.
Right.
And I really was so desperate that I started calling animal intuitives and pet psychics because I was at my wit's end.
So let me just back up a little bit here. So just so our listeners are clear, you were a New York fireman, right? Like that was your
Yes.
job. You weren't an herbalist when Wilma walked into your life, right? You were just I shouldn't say just a fireman.
Firefighter. I knew nothing about herbs. In fact, I thought herbs were just kind of weak, and I just didn't get it at all.
Right. So you're working in New York. You're a firefighter.
Yes.
How long had you been doing that?
13 years.
So
With
by
the fire
nature,
department.
as a firefighter, right, you're learned about traditional medicines and care, right?
As a firefighter, you're just learned about emergency response.
Okay. So anything
Yeah.
that happens quickly, this is how we fix it, and this is what we do quickly.
Yeah, emergency only.
Okay. So that's that it's interesting. And then she ends up, did someone dump her there, or was she just came in on her own?
She was brought in by my captain, and the story changed a few times. So I never really, and I was so thirsty for that information, and I never really got the answers. From her sister, possibly bred to be bait from a dog fighting ring that was busted. But not so sure. And every time I asked questions, I was kind of met with maybe more defensive. And I just wanted to know so I could understand because nothing
Right.
made sense to me.
Right. Your instinct was telling you something's off.
Well, I just wanted to understand what is
Right.
going on with this poor dog.
Oh my gosh.
And in holistic medicine, you do have to see the whole picture. So it sounds like your instincts were always towards a holistic perspective.
Right.
Well, it was only when veterinarians told me that I should put her down that, and also animal intuitives told me it was her DNA and that there was nothing I could do. And I really took a look at her and thought, oh my God, it is her DNA. Like the tongue hangs, the walk is funny, she has no pads, she's crapping blood. It is her DNA. And that's when I said to myself, fuck it, I'm not going to vets anymore. I'm just going to treat her myself. And if she stays, she stays. And I was obsessing online about herbs that are considered to be cell proliferatives, which means grow new skin. And I read about an herb called comfrey leaf. And because it grows skin so rapidly, I mixed it with an antimicrobial herb called yarrow because I didn't want to seal in any infection. And I wrapped her pads with the poultices. And the next morning, I took the poultice off. And sure enough, there was like a saran wrap, paper thin, brand new layer of skin. And I got spirit chills throughout my body.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when we started tackling all of her conditions.
So when she gets dropped off, she can't, from the moment that you get in contact with her, she can't walk. She's got bleeding paws.
She's walking okay. It's just there's blood steps everywhere.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness.
Okay.
And then, subsequently 4 casts and 4 bloody stained shoes and
Oh my gosh.
tons of broken cones because
Can you
she would be trying to get it herself.
During that time, could you see sparks of like tail wagging and like nothing?
Always.
Always good.
Now, Wilma is a very greedy, enthusiastic little badass, and she's always been so happy. And I would say that the most profound part is that she trusted me, and I trusted her, and I didn't really care what anybody had to say because, the mind is very deceitful because the mind introduces fear and worry and doubt. And the heart is the gateway to the mind. And if you don't follow your heart, you're going to be miserable.
Wow.
And if your heart is not in something, it's going to fail. And so I really, really, really learned that I needed to go for my higher knowing and not listen to my family, who was worried about me financially because I was bankrupt. The guys at the firehouse who genuinely saw that I was tearing my hair out every day and was worried about me. My friends who were like, dude, you gotta like put her out of her misery. And she was just so happy.
Just happy all the time. So you're not
And
seeing misery from her.
Never.
But you're seeing a dog who needs help. Big difference.
I was seeing a dog that needed to be rebuilt from the inside, and herbs heal the body. I mean, Western medicine is heroic. It stops a process that's happening in the body very efficiently and very quickly, but herbs actually heal the tissues. And we really started with her digestive system because I knew if she wasn't going to be assimilating nutrition and detoxifying properly, she was just going to waste away and die. And I discovered slippery elm bark, which you make into a gruel. And once I started giving her slippery elm in conjunction, because slippery elm is a slimy substance, so it'll coat the inside of the intestines from inflamed intestines.
Right.
And with red raspberry leaf, which tightens, it's a really beautiful combination for dog diarrhea or any inflammation in the digestive tract.
Yeah.
That's when she started having solid stools and she stopped vomiting, because she used to take a step and vomit too.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
it was just continuously a nightmare.
So I'm going to try to keep us, I want to tell the story as it kind of unfolds for you. So we have this dog now, and you have people telling you just put her down. You've seen several vets at this point. At what point do they give you an actual diagnosis? So what diagnosis did they give you that you finally accepted, were able to accept?
There was a vet that I was really just able to have candid conversations with, and she said you got to look at her brain and her tongue hanging and the eye drooping and her deformities. She has cerebral palsy.
Okay.
And they offered me a CAT scan to see if she had a tumor in her brain. But what am I going to do? Give this poor dog brain surgery?
Right.
This dog had no immune system to begin with. So I would say cerebral palsy was the main diagnosis.
Was the moment when you said, okay, now I've got a diagnosis, and now I need to figure out whether I go the traditional veterinary route, the holistic veterinary route, or I go into herbalism, right? So at some point, was there a shift from, okay, the diagnosis is great, a little bit of holistic, and at what point I know you said you went online and learned about comfrey, but there had to be a shifting moment where you thought, this is what I'm going to do.
The shifting moment was I was told to put her down by every professional, and I did not feel that was how she felt or I felt.
Okay.
And so that's when I decided that we're not going to go to vets anymore, which has not been true since then. But for the healing process, I just started treating her myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you find out about comfrey, and that was your moment where you thought, I'm onto something, and I'm going to know this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it was Spirit's moment coming through with Spirit Chills telling me that I was onto something. And then I continued asking help from animal intuitives, and one of them told me, I see a bag of dog food and I'm itchy all over. And for me, it was like I knew nothing about animal nutrition. So it's like animals are supposed to eat dog food. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Then I started studying that, and once I started home cooking for her, I would say that greatly improved everything. The self-mutilation stopped. Her skin improved. Her stools were perfect.
She
She
just
heard you
perked up
talking
on
about
that.
food.
Food? Oh.
So, yeah, and that was so easy compared to what people think. I
Such an-
learned so much about what actually is in animal food, and it, because of their digestive tone, as in muscle tone, they really are supposed to eat like a breed-specific diet,
Sure.
from their ancestors to just keep, their immune system is such a part of their digestive system, and kibble
Absolutely.
just kills their kidneys.
Oh, yes.
The heat that is used to create it, there's a lot of carcinogens that come out from that process.
Absolutely.
Cooking for your dog is not inconvenient. If you can flip around on Instagram and Facebook for 15 minutes, you've already cooked for your dog for 4 days.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell people a lot of times that nutrition is not for people who are wealthy. Anyone can do it, and you can do it inexpensively. It might not be as convenient as going to the store and buying, our food that's, packaged for us, but you can absolutely feed a dog healthy for very inexpensively.
Yes.
Absolutely. And, there are companies like The Honest Kitchen and Dr. Harvey's, which make it very simple for you. All you do is you choose your protein, and they already have all the nutrition that is needed for that animal.
Yeah.
Because it's a big mistake to just feed meat, because meat is high in phosphorus but low in calcium, and they need the calcium.
Yep.
Including obviously other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to start with nutrition.
Yeah. So we went that way. She saw the best veterinarians in New York, the best dermatologist there is, and luckily I had spoken to another animal intuitive who told me she was ravaged with yeast because she was on so many antibiotics.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
And,
Yes.
and yeast and probiotics and the good flora keep each other in check. If you go on antibiotics, yeast is going to take over, which creates another host of all problems. And what was really cool is this woman told me that they were not going to find any yeast, and that I should tell them to take clear packing tape on her skin and look at that under a microscope. And that's exactly what happened. She had no yeast. I told him, I'm paying for this stuff.
Right.
I told him, look at it under a microscope, and sure enough, she was ravaged with yeast.
Wow.
And that's when I started treating her both internally with Pod de Arco bark and calendula flower, and external rinses with both. And then just supplying her with soil-based probiotics.
That's amazing.
To repopulate all that was lost.
I think that the yeast, the candida overgrowth in our pets is epidemic. I think it's it's almost every pet that walks in, right, Elizabeth?
Yeah,
it's just an epidemic. And those are ones we can see the yeast and we can smell the yeast on.
Right.
They smell like Fritos.
Oh, yeah. We get that all. People always say that. I don't know. She smells like Fritos. It took me a long time to understand. I'm like, why do people keep telling me? This was back in my early days of learning, and I kept hearing the Frito conversation. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe your kids are eating Fritos. I had no idea because I was coming from the vet world, and so I didn't know. And then now, anytime someone comes in and says she smells like Fritos, I instantly know your dog has yeast. But and it starts when they're puppies, right? They start giving them those metronidazoles and those antibiotics for deworming or diarrhea. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. It starts from the moment you walk into your vet. The very first time you walk in is setting them up for success or failure, and unfortunately.
And then by the time we're seeing the swollen paws and the...
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, by the time we're seeing symptoms that would be visible to people who don't see the amount of dogs we do, the dog is so ravaged with it that then you have kind of a long road to getting rid of it. If you could just start with those basic nutritional, like you were talking about, like Carrie's always talking about, like the the gut health is just like, if you can start there, you're going to just give them, you're not going to have to fight that battle.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because a lot of times
said about digestive health. I mean, the endothelium is the same cells as the epithelium, and they lock in together very tightly, and nutrition is supposed to go through the cell into the bloodstream. If you have inflammation from kibble, now food particles go into the bloodstream, you have a hyperinflammatory response, which can create a numerous number of problems. Then these poor animals are put on steroids. It's just this vicious cycle, and they never address the fact that all they have to do is soothe and tighten those cells back together and feed a proper diet. I mean, that's what was going on here. And in almost every animal I treat, you always look at the gut.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's really frustrating when people say, oh no, they can only eat this protein that the body doesn't recognize. And it's like, no, they're supposed to have a variety of food, just like we're supposed to have a variety of corn, a variety of wheat, but everything's become this one monoculture.
Yeah.
And it's really damaging. And so, yeah, the gut is everything.
It is. So we start there, and then so we get Wilma on a good diet, and you see improvement right away. We got her on you get her on the comfrey, and you start to see her pads growing back.
Correct.
So how did you learn? Like for me, I'm a nutritionist, and that's my main focus is nutrition. Herbalism, herbs are really difficult for me to understand. So how to make them, I remember you and I had a conversation a while back, about 8 months ago or something, and you had mentioned Echinacea and how a lot of people say Echinacea doesn't work. And then you said to me, the reason it doesn't work is because you're not using it properly. Can you explain what you mean by that, by proper herbs?
Yes. Echinacea is inert when it's dry. And you want the tincture, like these are tinctures, you want the tincture of the fresh root, because the active components are active when the root itself is fresh. So basically, you would shred it, chop it, grate it, and then preserve it in 55% alcohol to extract the active constituents. So people that are taking Echinacea capsules, and these clinical studies where they took the 250 milligrams, which is a size 0 empty capsule of the dried leaf, and then said it didn't do anything for the cold and flu. It was so obvious. These clinical studies are such a joke to begin with. Echinacea is profound medicine. It's a frequent dose herb, but it needs to be the tincture of the fresh root.
So when you say tincture, you mean liquid?
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I told you guys I don't know anything about herbs.
You're putting it in.
That's okay. So these are all tinctures that I've made, which basically you powder the dry herb material in an herb grinder to break the cells open, and then you will look up the herb and you will get the right amount of alcohol for that specific herb.
Okay.
For example, something like frankincense or myrrh, because they're resins, they're basically like rocks. They need a high amount of alcohol to extract all the volatile oils and resins. But something that's water soluble, you just need enough for bacteria not to grow, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
And then you shake it up for about 6 weeks, and then you press it out, and you have a very potent tincture or extract, liquid extract.
So
And Wilma's had a lot of Echinacea in her day.
Yeah. She has.
And I was taught that when I was studying for my certification, that you only pick or buy, depending on where you're getting your herbs, what you're going to use. You don't, because of the freshness factor, you get the amount of herbs for what you're making then. And like you said, it's not going to be the same if it's hanging around your workspace for weeks waiting for you to use.
Yeah. And that's not to say that all herbs need to be fresh when they're tinctured. Some herbs that you just want the oils from, they're actually better dry.
Right,
You just have to know your plants. And so I put myself through 3 herbal programs because Wilma was constantly
She is so cute.
creating challenges for me. And, you know, it's a juggling act of joy. It's been nothing but a fairy tale being with this beautiful, beautiful soul.
It seems like it's very mutual.
It's very mutual. What is her favorite thing? What is Wilma's favorite thing to do? Does she chase balls? Does she what is her favorite other than what she's doing right now?
Other than tummy rubs.
To our podcast listeners, you can't see it, but
her relationship with my mom is her favorite thing to do. Wilma never had a yard in New York City. I had to throw her on my shoulders, drag her all the way down to the West Side Highway where there was a little boardwalk.
Yeah.
And, you know, finally now she's with my mom most of the time, and they have an amazing, amazing relationship in Greek with a lot of drama and a lot of tail wagging and a lot of fun. And she loves the sun, and she's living her elderly years.
How old is she?
She's gonna be 13 in January, 13. Like her dad.
That is such an amazing story.
Just
out of curiosity, not to throw your mom under the bus a little bit, but you said that a lot of your family wasn't supportive of you doing this. How was your mom?
It was because they just didn't. You know, there was a lot of sleepless nights, especially after a 24-hour shift, and then it's a bloodbath, and you're not even coherent, and you're trying to tend to an animal that is just so happily a complete and utter catastrophe.
Yeah.
It was a lot of people worrying about my well-being, actually.
That's
but
understandable.
I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because I just knew how I felt.
Right.
And there was just an understanding, and just the same way she's laying on her back right now, no matter what I had to do to her pads, she always let me. She knew she was being helped, even if it stung, even if it was uncomfortable. There was just a mutual trust that was there, and how could I not go with what I felt, regardless of what anybody had to say? People are very well-meaning, but sometimes we're in our higher knowing, and we allow ourselves to get influenced, and then, you know, I would have never forgiven myself. I would have always wondered, what if?
Yeah.
And the heart knows.
I bet your mom is real happy now.
Well, she's ransacked her from me, and they're in love. She is very happy.
Yeah. That's awesome. You know. So let's talk a little bit about, I know we have a lot of holistic veterinarians in Southern California who use a lot of the liver herb. Why am I drawing a blank on this? You know what I'm talking about. Milk thistle. Tell me the differences between milk thistle, because I think that's the herb that is used the most common, because we have vets who are using it.
Milk thistle is a beautiful herb. Silymarin is the active constituent that they pulled out of it, or one of the many, many, many chemicals. You know, if your liver enzymes are high, usually your vets will recommend milk thistle. It's best used at night because the liver regenerates itself at night.
Okay. And should that be in a tincture as well? Because I have all these pets who are taking...
No, because they're able to extract the silymarin, milk thistle, because it's a seed and it needs a high amount of alcohol to break down the oils and resins in that seed. A lot of companies actually extract silymarin, which is what they consider to be the active constituents, sort of like how they say curcumin from turmeric. Mm-hmm. You can use a pill form with milk thistle.
What about just eating the seeds like we do sunflower seeds? No?
It's really, a lot of things do have to do with the digestive function. And that's why sometimes we really want either the active constituent to be already readily available, so it'll be readily absorbed, or a tincture, so it goes right in the amount of seeds that you would have to go through it wouldn't be worth it, and they're not tasty either.
Oh.
If it were like trying to get zinc from pumpkin seeds, that would be great.
That's what I was kind of thinking along the lines of like our pumpkin
Yeah.
seeds and how we can get things from it, but it's better, you think, in a pill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But milk thistle is great. You can find the products with the active constituent silymarin. Most people will just go for the silymarin itself.
Yeah. So are there herbs, and I think this was Elizabeth and I were talking about this before. You had a question about human versus.
Right. So I have studied herbalism for humans a bit and for canines quite a bit, but I have found over the years I've been surprised that what is good for even a dog can be incredibly toxic for cats. I mean, cats seem so fragile as far as what is toxic to them as opposed to dogs.
Yeah, and
so
there is a lot of unfortunately, there is not like a standardized. I read so many different cat and pet books, and some holistic veterinarians will have a list of safe for cats. Others will say toxic for cats.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating working with cats as opposed to dogs for me.
I'm hoping more information will come out. There's a lot more that, in general, because cats are so finicky, it's really tricky to keep to, even with like, I have a bacon flavor extract. Even then, sometimes the sweetest flavoring herbs like astragalus, they won't go for. And so you find ways to be sneaky, like you mix it in fat and they'll maybe eat it then, or sardine juice, but dogs will pretty much gobble up everything. I mean, Wilma, no matter what teas I pour into her food, she'll lap it up.
So you make all of your own tinctures, right?
Yes, except for the plants that have to be tinctured while they're fresh. If I don't have access for them, I don't know if you see the orange bottles. It's from companies that tincture it right after they pull it from the ground. Otherwise, it's useless. Yeah. So everything else I make myself.
You make yourself.
And do you grow your own herbs that you use?
No, I just get from organic farmers.
Have you found it easy to find local sources of fresh herbs? Because I know even like Echinacea and golden seal, which are in pretty common use, are on the at-risk list as far as herbs. So
I really like Pacific Botanicals. If you're in the West Coast, the East Coast, there's so many beautiful. There's so many at this day and age. There's a lot of CSAs and a lot of small farms, so it's actually better than it was. So it's not hard to find fresh herbs. If you need that herb to be fresh, you just kind of want to research when it's time to harvest it, and then find those CSAs and jump on it. Because there's plenty. Because when it's their time, there's so much.
If you need to do that before the flowers bloom, you don't wait a day. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to jump on it, but there's a lot of CSAs and small farmers these days that their product is just beautiful.
That's good to hear, because I know, the idea of like wild crafting and going out and finding your own is very romantic. It's not the best for the environment or for the plant. So
that's true.
I grow what I can, but I only have so much space. So it's nice to know that there's a good West Coast, because we are on the West Coast.
We are.
So it's good to know.
Yeah.
But we have listeners all over, so
that's true.
We have a lot of listeners, so we're trying to help people get. What are the risks of overdosing a pet? I'm completely encouraging.
I mean,
our listeners to use an herbalist.
I would say I've never overdosed, and Wilma has taken human doses. Personally, I've never overdosed. I think it really depends on the plant material you're using. If you're using something that says for a human 5 to 10 drops, then you pretty much can guess that for an animal, 2 to 3 drops is the dose. You don't want to give a human dose to an animal, although with her, I have really pushed that boundary, but I would never do that with a client.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, our cell receptor sites are meant to use plant material.
Yeah.
So I would say dosing is the most important thing. It's, people are so used to taking one little dinky pill of Western medicine that has extended release, and they think it's supposed to last 24 hours, which it does. But we don't take a bite of an apple and we're done for the day. The same applies for herbs. When Wilma's on a protocol, she's going to get her herbs 4 times a day because her cells use that and utilize it.
Yeah.
And the same goes for us too. So it's, I would say diligence. If you want to see results, you don't go to the gym and you do 1 jumping jack and then complain to your personal trainer.
Oh my gosh,
You got to
thank
be
you.
diligent.
Very
You
diligent.
got to be diligent, and you got to
Yes.
be devoted to your animal's healing. It's not a passive experience. It is a extremely rewarding experience and a beautiful experience, but it's not passive.
And I think your story is such a great example of that. I was saying to Carrie the other day that it's when you're working with someone as an herbalist, it's hard sometimes for them to understand, like if you go get an antibiotic from the ER, you'll feel better in like 24 hours. With holistic medicine in general, but with herbalism in particular, you might try several things. It's more of a journey, and it can be discouraging sometimes. Like you have to really encourage people that it's like a path. And I think your story is just like one of the best examples of that I've ever heard. It's really encouraging.
I would say 10 days is a really good indicator. Say you're treating a dog that's like crapping blood. I would say 10 days is a really good indicator if the protocol you're on is the right protocol.
Right. And then be willing to switch
as the animal
it.
heals and changes, the protocol will change.
Exactly.
So basically, you bring them back to balance. So
Right.
it's not like they just stay on that one protocol and they're good. It doesn't work that way. You keep changing it, and then you can address something else, and then they don't need you anymore, and you hear from them from the holidays when they send you a card and a picture of their dog.
Oh my
That's the way it's supposed to be. Like this isn't about maintenance, although I would be lying and saying, Wilma is continuous maintenance, but who cares?
Right.
So am I. And so are you guys probably.
My husband will tell you I'm high maintenance.
What's the difference?
Right.
I never wanted a Paris Hilton dog to begin with. I wasn't looking for an animal, but obviously the Firefighter days and then Spirit bringing me her brought maybe just some sort of an awakening for my heart center that I needed at the time.
Oh my God.
Well, if you were a firefighter,
a mutually beneficial experience for both of us, and continues to be.
Yes, I was just thinking, if you were already a firefighter, your heart was already in that place where you were helping people and contributing in a really positive way. That seems like that's kind of at the core of who you are even before this experience.
Right.
Yeah,
it's just a different path
also before
that gets
fire.
us there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Wilma really brought in Spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And dogs do that.
They do that. Pets do that. They soften us.
Using your mind
Definitely.
and using
your heart.
And we used to fall asleep with her pads in my hands, and I would just run energy and just visualize what I wanted to see and supercharge my body with. I would just ask, show me what love feels like. And I would really just feel my whole body vibrating with love, and then I would shoot it out from my heart into her pads.
Wow.
And, I don't know what to say other than I'm just a very, 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 very lucky person. I used to pray that she would make it to 1, and She's
Oh,
13,
And she's
and I'm
13 years
so,
old. Blessed.
you
I
know,
tell people all the time, if you haven't had that bond with an animal, I feel sorry for you. And if you have, congratulations, because it's an amazing thing to have a bond with an animal that trusts you and that you trust them. And
yeah, it's
I think you're
unconditional.
just a pillar of that. You know, you're
yes, oh,
just so
definitely.
amazing for us to listen to this story. We are going to have to wrap it up a little bit so we don't go too long. But can you just tell us a little, just real quick about your Instagram if people did want to reach out to you. You have an Instagram that they can follow
Oh,
and
Yeah,
I would love to
I
follow your
am
Instagram.
a urban herbalist NYC, one word.
okay,
Okay.
I'm sort of like an understated person, so I don't have a website, and
right.
people are welcome to send me a message on there if they wish to. Um,
Yeah.
that's
I know
that's
I'm gonna
it.
be getting my herbs from you, so I'm very excited to start working with you with my own dog's needs. We spoke a little bit about one of my dogs, so
Yes.
I'm very excited to do that and
Yes,
to
yes.
show the changes that are coming of hers. So hopefully people will reach out to you and you can help more animals. I think you got on this path for a reason, and I am blessed to have found you, and I'm blessed that you
Thank you.
came on this show because Elizabeth and I see so many animals, and if we can all reach them, you're just one more step closer for us to reach them, and I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing Wilma with us and her story. And
Thank you.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I really am touched by your story, and I'm inspired by your
absolutely inspiring.
herb shop behind you. It's
Yeah,
very,
it's very awesome.
it is. It's aesthetically and work-wise. You put a lot into this, and it's great.
Great. Thank you, Starvos, for
Thank
being
you.
here. Okay, take
Thank
care.
you. It was nice meeting
Bye,
both of you.
Wilma.
You too. Take care. Bye, Wilma. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Spawdcast today. All of the information that we gave will be in our show notes, so you can get a hold of Starvos if you need to. I want to thank Elizabeth for being here, also helping me with some of the questions, because as you know, I am not an herbalist, and it's something new for me. I spend a lot of time studying nutrition, so the two of them, I think, go together, so I'm very excited to be able to bring this other type of healing for you to listen to. And if you have any questions, of course, you can reach me at the spa, or you can email me. I'm always available to talk anytime. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.